The British came to India in 1600 as traders in the form of East India Company, which had the exclusive right of trading in India under a charter granted by Queen Elizabeth I. In 1765, the company, which still now has purely trading the function, obtained the Diwani, that is the right over revenue in Silla, Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. The company ruled 1773 to 1858. The features of this act were as follows. The first such Governor General was Lord Warner Hastings. It made the Governor of Bombay and Madras presidency subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal, unlike earlier when their three presidencies were independent of one another. It provided for the establishment of a Supreme Court of Calcutta, 1774, comprising one Chief Justice and three other judges. It prohibited the servants of the company from engaging in any private trade or accepting the presents of bribes from the natives. It strengthened the control of the British government over the company by requiring the court of directors, governing body of the company, to report on the revenue, civil, and military affairs in India. Amending Act of 1781 is a bid to rectify the defects of the Regulating Act of 1773. The British Parliament passed the Amending Act of 1781, also known as the Act of Settlement. The features of the Act were as follows. It exempted the Governor General and the Council from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court for the act done by them in the official capacity. Similarly, it is also exempted that the servants of the company from the jurisdictions of the Supreme Court for their official actions. It excluded the revenue matter and the matter arising in the collection of the revenue from the jurisdictions of the Supreme Court. Third point, it provided that the Supreme Court was to have jurisdiction over all the inhabitants of Calcutta. It also required the Court of Administration, the personal law of the defendants, that is, Hindus were to be tried according to the Hindu law and the Muslim were to be tried to the Mohammedan law. It lays down the appraisal from the provisional courts could be taken to the Governor General in Council and not to the Supreme Court. It empowered the Governor General in Council to frame regulations for the provisional court and council. Pitt's India Act of 1784. The next important act was the Pitt's India Act of 1784. The feature of the acts were as follows: is distinguished between the commercial and the political functions of the company. Second point, it allowed the court of the directors to manage the commercial affair, but create a new body called Co- Con- Board of Control to manage the political affairs. Thus, it established a system of double government. Third point, it empowered the Board of Control to supervise and direct all the operations of the civil and the military government to defend the British possessions in India. So, these were the 3 points of the features of this act. Thus, the act was significant for two reasons. First, the company territories in India were for the first time called the British possessions in India, and the second, the British government was given the supreme control over the company's affair and the administration in India. मतलब जब ब्रिटिश या इंडिया में आई थी तो फिर वो दो रीज़न से चला रही थी। एक तो कंपनी टेरिटरीज इंडिया वेयर द फर्स्ट कॉल द ब्रिटिश पोजीशन, मतलब कंपनी ने जो ब्रिटिश आई थी तो जो कंपनी उन्होंने फॉर्म की थी ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी, वो उधर चला सके। दूसरा कि क्या, द ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट वॉज गिवन द सुप्रीम कंट्रोल ओवर द कंपनीज अफेयर, मतलब कि कंपनी में जो कुछ भी चलेगा वो सिर्फ ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट के कंट्रोल से ही होगा, उसमें इंडियन गवर्नमेंट कुछ नहीं कर पाएंगी। इन इट्स एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इन इंडिया। एक्ट्स ऑफ 1786. In 1786, Lord Cornwallis was appointed as the Governor General of Bengal. He placed two demands to accept the post. First, he should be given power to override the decision of his council and special cases. एक second. Second, he would be commander in chief accordingly. The Act of 1786 was intends to make both the provisions. Charter Act of 1793. The feature of these acts were as follows. तो चार्टर एक्ट के फीचर्स यहाँ पे पढ़ेंगे. It extended overriding power given to the Lord Cornwallis over his council to all the future Governor General and Governor of Presidency. Second, it gave the Governor General more power and control over the government of the subordinate presidency of Bombay and Madras. It extended the trade monopoly of the company in India and other periods of the 20 years. It provided the commander-in-chief was not to be member of the Governor General Council unless he was so appointed. It laid down the member of the board of control and the staff were henceforth to be paid out of the Indian revenue. Next, Charter Act of 1813. The features of this act were as follows. It abolished the trade monopoly of the company in India. That is, the Indian trade was thrown open to all the British merchants. However, it continued the monopoly of the company over the trade in tea and trade with China. It asserted the sovereignty of the British crown over the company territory in India. It allowed the Christian missionaries to come to India for the purpose of the enlightening the people. मतलब चार्टर एक्ट ऑफ 1833 में क्या किया था कि उन्होंने चाइना के साथ ट्रेड चालू कर दिया था, ठीक है, टी से रिलेटेड, ठीक है। और दूसरा कि जो ब्रिटिश में क्राउन पॉलिसी जैसे चल रही थी, मतलब राजा रानी वाली, वो अभी वो इंडिया में लागू की जा रही थी कंपनी के थ्रू। हाँ, इट अलाउड द क्रिश्चियन मिशनरीज टू कम टू इंडिया। क्रिश्चियन मिशनरी जैसे कि फादर हो गए, सिस्टर हो गए, नन्स हो गए, उनको इंडिया में लाया जाता था फॉर द एनलाइटिंग द पीपल। एनलाइटिंग मतलब उनको मार्गदर्शक करने के लिए, उनको उनका फॉलोइंग बढ़ाने के लिए। इट प्रोवाइडेड द स्प्रेड टू वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन अमंग द इनहेबिचुएंट्स ऑफ द ब्रिटिश टेरिटरीज इन इंडिया। दूसरा कि जो वेस्टर्न कल्चर था, ठीक है, जो एजुकेशन था, वो हम हमारे लोगों को दे सके, उसके लिए थी। इट अथॉराइज द लोकल गवर्नमेंट इन इंडिया टू इम्पोज टैक्सेस ऑन पर्सन। दे कुड ऑल्सो पनिश द पर्सन फॉर नॉट पेइंग टैक्सेस। दूसरे के लोकल गवर्नमेंट को टैक्सेस भरने के लिए मजबूर किया गया था, ठीक है। और सपोज कोई टैक्सेस नहीं भरता तो उसके लिए उनको पनिशमेंट भी दिया जाता था। चार्टर एक्ट ऑफ 1833 फीचर्स। फर्स्ट, it made the Governor General of Bengal as the Governor General of India and vested in him all civil and military powers. Thus, the act created for the first time Government of India having authority over the entire territorial area possessed by the British in India. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. It deprived the government of Bombay and Madras of their legislative powers. Thus, the Government General of India was given exclusive legislative power for the entire British India. The law made under the previous act were called as the regulations, while laws made under this acts were called as the acts. Third point, it ended the activities of the East India Company as a commercial body. तो इसमें क्या हो गया एक्चुअली चार्टर एक्ट 13 में, 1833 में, कि कंपनी पहले सब चला लेती थी, लेकिन अभी कैसे उधर के लोग जब आने लगे ब्रिटिश के, तो उन्होंने कंपनी तो चला रहे लेकिन वो खुद का रूल वहाँ पे लेके आ रहे थे। मतलब वो क्या कर रहे थे कि ब्रिटिश रूल वहाँ पे लागू हो गया था, ठीक है, मतलब उन्होंने खुद की गवर्नमेंट फॉर्म कर ली थी। इट प्रोवाइड द कंपनी टेरिटरीज इन इंडिया वे हेल्ड बाई इट्स इंटरेस्ट फॉर हिज मैजेस्टी हिज heirs and successor. The Charter Act of 1833 attempts to introduce a system to open competition for selections of civil servants and stated that the Indian should not be debarred from holding any places, office, and employment under the company. However, this provision was negated after opposition from the court of the directors. Sorry. फिर देखते हैं चार्टर एक्ट ऑफ 1853. This was the last of the series of the Charter Act passed by the British Parliament between the 1793 to 1853. तो 1793 एक्चुअली 1793 से फर्स्ट चार्टर एक्ट यहाँ पे चालू हुआ था, जो अपने देखा उसके फीचर्स देखे। फिर 1813 वाला सेकंड आया था, फिर 1833 में दूसरा तीसरा आया था, अभी 1853 में एक और चार्टर एक्ट आया था जो कि लास्ट था, ठीक है। The features of this act are as follow. It separated for the first time the legislative and executive functions of the Governor General Council. It provided for addition of the 6 new members called as a legislative councillor to the council. In other words, it established a separate Governor General Legislative Council which came to be known as the Indian Legislative Council. मतलब सेंट्रल जैसे काम करता था, ठीक है। अगर आपको मेरा वीडियो पसंद आता है तो लाइक कीजिए, ओके। It introduced the open competition system of selection and recruitment of the civil servants. The convenient civil servants were thus thrown open to the Indian also. Accordingly, McLeod Committee, that is Committee of the Indian Civil Service, was appointed in 1854. तो 1854 में क्या हो गया कि सिविल सर्वेंट्स अपॉइंट किए गए, ठीक है, अलग अलग पोस्ट के लिए, जो कि इंडियंस के लिए भी ओपन हो गया था। मतलब इंडियंस वहाँ पे पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते थे कंपटीशन के थ्रू। In the extended, the company rule was allowed to retain the possession of Indian territory on trust for the British crown, but it does not specify any particular period. Unlike the Prevention Charter, this was a clear indication that the company could not be determined by at any time of the parliament liked. It introduced for the first time local representative in India legislative council of the six new legislative members of the Governor General Council. Four members were appointed by the local government of Madras, Bombay, Bengal and Agra. ठीक है, आज के लिए इतना ही. कल अपन देखते हैं क्राउन रूल.